What is up, everybody? The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild releases March 3rd for the Wii U and the Switch. The question everyone has been asking is what happens next? We have no announced Zelda games beyond Breath of the Wild, but rest assured, a few are already in development. In fact, Nintendo always has at least 2 or 3 Zelda games being worked on at the same time. We know DeNA is working on a Zelda game for smartphones, and Aonuma has already mentioned his ideals for the next home console Zelda title. But before we get to that, please like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future news and videos. And with all of that out of the way, let's get started. To begin, let's travel back to the last home console Zelda game and see everything that has been released since. So in 2011, while Skyward Sword was being finished, Nintendo had already started pre-production on what would become the engine used in Breath of the Wild, but we would first see it used in the Zelda Wii U tech demo and Wind Waker HD. At the same time, they had their handheld team working on A Link Between Worlds, Grezzo was just coming off of Ocarina of Time 3D and working on Majora's Mask 3D, and they were soon to be discussing plans for Hyrule Warriors with Tecmo Koei. This makes about 5 different Zelda games being in development at the same time.
In 2011, we had Ocarina of Time 3D, Four Swords Anniversary Edition with new dungeons, and Skyward Sword. Then in 2013, we had A Link Between Worlds and Wind Waker HD. 2014, we had Hyrule Warriors, and in 2015, we saw Triforce Heroes and Majora's Mask 3D. In 2016, we had Twilight Princess HD and Hyrule Warriors Legends. Nintendo was releasing Zelda games one after the other, and sometimes with 3 in a single year back to back. So with Breath of the Wild being the only Zelda game currently announced, what's next? Well, common sense tells us it's been a few years since A Link Between Worlds and Triforce Heroes were released, and we haven't heard anything about what the team behind those games are up to. Unlike other games like Donkey Kong, Yoshi, Metroid, and Star Fox, Nintendo has 2 teams dedicated to Mario and 2 teams dedicated to Zelda, one for the handheld games and one for the home console. So unless the Zelda handheld team is just sitting there fiddling with their thumbs, we know they are more than likely working on another top-down 2D or 2.5D style Zelda game, like A Link Between Worlds but on the Switch. Could you imagine that? A game like A Link Between Worlds, but instead of being limited by the power of the 3DS, we have it being worked on for a console powerful enough to run Breath of the Wild. I'd be happy with just A Link Between Worlds being ported over and running in HD, but a brand new title would be even better. Triforce Heroes was released in October of 2015, slightly less than 2 years after A Link Between Worlds, which released in November of 2013. And guess what? It's been 2 years since Triforce Heroes released, and we have no announced games after Breath of the Wild. But guess what happens just a few months after Breath of the Wild and the Switch releases? That's right, E3. So a follow-up to A Link Between Worlds and Triforce Heroes being announced for the Switch to release in the holiday of this year fits perfectly with the pattern Nintendo has set for their handheld games. We know the team is working on the handheld Zelda title. We just don't know if it will be using the top-down 2.5D style of A Link Between Worlds and Triforce Heroes or the 3D style and engine for Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask 3D. Let us know in the comments below which type of Zelda game you would like to see on the Switch. But what about the team behind Breath of the Wild? What would they be working on next? Well, Aonuma has already given us a hint.
When IGN asked Aonuma this exact question, he answered with, "I would like to take what I learned from Breath of the Wild and see if we can somehow fuse those learning points into another multiplayer Zelda. For example, with Triforce Heroes, which followed a similar format of Four Swords, there was a multiplayer involved in that game. So that's definitely a possibility, and we will continue to experiment throughout the Zelda franchise." The approach to multiplayer also makes sense, as when Breath of the Wild was simply known as Zelda Wii U, one of the very first details given about the game came when Wind Waker HD was announced. Aonuma said he doesn't want fans to think of Zelda Wii U as a single-player experience. So the fact that the follow-up to Breath of the Wild will have multiplayer isn't too surprising, as it seems to be something Aonuma has wanted to do for well over 3 or 4 years. Only 2D games have had multiplayer, so seeing a Zelda game using Breath of the Wild's engine but having a multiplayer component would be amazing, as long as they don't make it a requirement, like most multiplayer Zelda games. They should just have it optional. For example, in Breath of the Wild, when we tap the Wolf Link amiibo, the computer, or AI, controls Wolf Link and his actions, but if it was optional for a second player to pick up a controller and play as Wolf Link, it would be the perfect solution. It wouldn't take away from the experience, as having a companion character is already part of the game, and it would be completely optional. It isn't taking away anything or adding anything.
When could this game release? Well, after Skyward Sword, Aonuma said he wanted to aim at getting to a point where each home console Zelda title had a development time of about 3 years. Obviously now, Breath of the Wild took almost twice that time, but that was due to them having to build the incredibly advanced engine for Breath of the Wild and getting all the bugs and glitches out of it. So since they already have the engine mastered, and we know most Zelda games begin with ideas that were scrapped from the previous game, I have plenty of examples and interviews about this in a video linked in the description and pinned comment below. It could be entirely possible for Nintendo to have a follow-up to Breath of the Wild release in either 2019 or 2020. Personally, I would like to see Link from Breath of the Wild travel to Termina and see what a new Termina would look like in the scale of Hyrule from Breath of the Wild. Revisit some of the fan favorite places in the game and how the world has changed since Majora's Mask. If the story could even link back to the original or shed some light on Majora or the fierce deity, that would be great. We see the changes Hyrule has made over the thousands of years from Skyward Sword until the end of the timeline. We see how the castle, Lake Hyla, Temple of Time, the races, and even Kakariko Village have changed from one game to another. So seeing how Stone Tower Temple, Clock Town, and all the other locations in Termina have changed would be perfect, but again, this is just my wish. Anyways, if this multiplayer Zelda game using the Breath of the Wild engine releases anytime soon, it would have to be 2019 at the earliest. What else can we expect until then, other than the new 2.5D game that is already being worked on? Well, a lot actually. Nintendo over the years has dropped remake after remake. Nintendo themselves personally worked on Wind Waker HD, after they said that they experimented with Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, and Skyward Sword using the Zelda Wii U engine, or what we know as the Breath of the Wild engine now. They thought Wind Waker looked to have the biggest improvement and was one of the most deserving of a remake. So then they decided to remake the game, which is why the lighting, among other things, is completely different from the original. We also had Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask 3D, which were both made by Grezzo. We had Twilight Princess HD, which was remade by Tantalus. And we had A Link Between Worlds, which started as Aonuma wanting to remake A Link to the Past to take full advantage of the power of the 3D ability that the 3DS had, but after talking with Miyamoto, they decided a re-imaging was better than a remake. In the end, we got a sequel titled A Link Between Worlds in English, but the Japanese title translates to Triforce of the Gods 2, as A Link to the Past is known as Triforce of the Gods 1 in Japan.
So, what games can we expect for the next remake from Nintendo? Common sense tells us Skyward Sword. Every home console Zelda title from the Super Nintendo on has received a remake except for Skyward Sword. We have A Link to the Past, which was reimagined with A Link Between Worlds. We have Ocarina of Time 3D, Majora's Mask 3D, the Wind Waker HD, Twilight Princess HD, and some even see Breath of the Wild as being a reimagining of the original home console Zelda game. So all that is left is for Skyward Sword HD to be made, and the Switch even has motion controls and an IR camera. How convenient. In fact, Nintendo could already have another studio working on it, just as they had Grezzo make the 3D remakes, and Tantalus work on Twilight Princess HD. We also have a huge anniversary coming up. Again, without anything being announced after Breath of the Wild's release. We don't know what big Zelda title will be coming in 2018, but that does mark the anniversary of one of the biggest games to ever release, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Now I know it had a 3D release, but even that game is still running at 480p, which is severely outdated in 2017. It isn't even a full 16:9 widescreen. So to celebrate the 20th anniversary, give us a real HD remake using the Breath of the Wild engine and taking full use of the power the Switch is capable of. It doesn't have to look as realistic as the Zelda Wii U tech demo, which would be able to run easily on the Switch, as the Switch is even more powerful than the Wii U. And if they're busy working on the follow-up for Breath of the Wild, and they don't have the time or money to devote to a full remake, why not just simply port over the 3DS version and allow it to render in HD? We already have rumors of Pokémon Stars doing this exact same thing. Aonuma recently talked about how easy it was to port Breath of the Wild, a title that pushes the Wii U to its breaking point, to the Switch. We've also seen several games ported from the Wii U to 3DS, like Mario Maker, Yoshi's Woolly World, Hyrule Warriors, and Smash Bros. For the 3DS and Wii U also share the same engine and were developed alongside each other, so it's probably just as easy, if not easier, to port the 3DS titles to the Switch.
This would give Nintendo more time to work on that multiplayer Zelda game that uses the Breath of the Wild engine that Aonuma wants to do so badly. And who would argue with an official Ocarina of Time HD release on its 20th anniversary? I'd love it, you would love it, even Shuhei would love it, and he's working for the competing team. Then, 2 years from that, we could get Majora's Mask HD on its 20th anniversary, but if Nintendo really wanted to please the fans, they could release a combo set at the same time. Ocarina of Time HD and Majora's Mask HD both releasing together on Ocarina of Time's birthday. They could take it a step further and add in that Zelda Ura DLC to the Ocarina of Time remake and charge $500. I'd still buy it. Next, this has no real logic behind it other than a rumor, the fans wanting it, Hyrule Warriors adding it as DLC, and it being the most deserving of a remake. If they took Link's Awakening and remade it using either the engine from Ocarina of Time 3D or the engine from A Link Between Worlds, this game is by far one of the most deserving of a remake. It was in black and white on an 8-bit Game Boy, so it was severely limited by the hardware it was using. The weapons and item system is severely needing an upgrade, but the story, the bosses, the enemies, the characters in the game are some of my favorite. Finally, we come to Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks. Both great games for the DS. Probably some of the best games the DS has to offer, and the DS has amazing games. But I feel these games are also incredibly deserving of a remake. They run in 240p, they aren't widescreen, and they're severely held back by not having traditional controls. I even remember a sign in Phantom Hourglass that made a joke about it only using the touchscreen, so that game even poked fun at itself. Now, if we had this on the Switch, they could use the same engine and just render it in HD. Or even better, they could give it a full remake using the updated A Link Between Worlds engine, or, again, even better, an entirely new engine that takes full advantage of the Switch's hardware. Any of this is fine as long as they make it so it has traditional controls. Let me use the D-pad or analog stick to move. Let me use the right analog stick to control the camera or something else entirely. Let me press buttons to attack and use items. And keep the touch controls for the people that want to experience it the way that it was originally meant to be played. Also, these two games would be perfect to just drop on smartphones and tablets. They are designed from the ground up to be played with just the touchscreen and could work in the same way they do on the Wii U. What's up everybody, really quick before we get to the usual end slate, I wanted to mention a quick update for this channel. I'm trying to bring together a few new series other than the usual discussions and news videos that we do. I would like to bring quality reviews, let's plays, do more live streams, a top 10 series, and more analysis videos. However, to do this I need your help. Between being a new father, YouTube, and my real job, I don't have the time to work on all of these videos. So I'd like to bring on other people who can help out from time to time, like Sasizi and others who have helped host and edit videos before. To make this all happen and to get awesome rewards for yourself, head over to patreon.com/GameOverJesse where you can get shoutouts and videos, join our group Discord and chat with us whenever you want, be a guest on some of our videos, and much more. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. I would like to give a huge thank you to this month's Patreons for their support: George Martinez, Glenn Cassio, Hinhu Tienin, Lunarium, Magic Tech Review, The Itch Network, and Harris Priest. Thank you all for everything, and it's because of your support that I'm able to find the time to do these videos. If you would also like to support this channel, head over to patreon.com/GameOverJesse where you can find all kinds of great rewards like joining on a video, being added onto our Discord chat, having your discussion or topic featured on one of our videos, and much more, including having your own custom artwork similar to my own, drawn of you in any anime or video game style you would like. Finally, I would like to give a huge thank you to Gnomo Designs and CS Guitar 89 for providing the music and artwork for this channel.